Hi everyone. Today it doesn't seem that I'm returning to a band that I have learned to love, that is Simon and Garfunkel. Instead, it is simply titled Paul Simon, Hearts and Bones from 1983. So perhaps this is a bit after Simon and Garfunkel? Let's find out. The album was written and recorded following Simon and Garfunkel's The Concert in Central Park in 1981 and the world tour of 1982 to 1983. Several songs intended for Think Too Much were previewed on tour, and Art Garfunkel worked on some of the songs with Simon in the studio, with an intention that the finished product would be an all-new Simon and Garfunkel studio album. Okay, so this is actually developed during Simon and Garfunkel's time together. The album, particularly the title song, was a reflection on Paul's relationship with actress Carrie Fisher, and Paul felt that it was too personal to be a Simon and Garfunkel album, instead deciding that it should be a solo album. This greatly annoyed Garfunkel and ensured that there would never again be another Simon and Garfunkel album. Another one of those. It's a pity they broke up. I have really come to enjoy Simon and Garfunkel's output, just as I've really developed a deep appreciation for the Beatles' work together. And it always hurts when I realize that conflicts, disagreements led to the dissolution of the team. Garfunkel left the project, and Simon erased all his vocals and reworked the material into a solo album. Well, I have come to appreciate Simon's work even on his own. I guess I just recently listened to his American song, sung by Eva Cassidy. So now let's see how Hearts and Bones sounds. I love the texture. There's an intricacy to it, which I recognize from Simon and Garfunkel's work together. There's a sort of a, I don't know, should I say Spanish feel to it?
1 1/2 wandering Jews, free to wander wherever they choose.
1 1/2 wandering
are
Jews?
traveling together in the sangre de Cristo, the blood of Christ mountains of New Mexico.
Yeah, there is. Okay, that's why there's a bit of a Spanish feel to it.
On the last leg of a journey they started a long time ago, the arc of a love affair, rainbows in the high desert air, mountain passes slipping into stone, hearts and bones, hearts and bones, hearts and bones.
So there are so many elements that I recognize from Simon and Garfunkel's output that I've listened to. I guess what's missing are the harmonizing voices of the two of them together. That really is what stands out to me as the missing element. But I like the piece. I like this. It has a very traveling music sound, and the rippling, intricate feel of the accompaniment texture, the multi-layering effect that is still there and is so enjoyable. I also like the lyrics. They are very descriptive, colorful, detailed. 1 1/2 wandering Jews. Doesn't that get you thinking, okay, 1 1/2 wandering Jews, free to wander wherever they choose, are traveling together in the Sangre de Cristo, the Blood of Christ Mountains of New Mexico. We have place, we have detail, we have identity, we have all of that, as well as an expression, a portrayal of their lifestyle, free to wander wherever they choose. And then it gets even more detailed. On the last leg of a journey they started a long time ago, the arc of a love affair, rainbows in the high desert air. So much here, expressed in such simple, everyday language. But that everyday language is organized in such a way that it kind of is elevated above ordinary everyday speech habits. He's managed to create this impression of epic length of journey without using any grand epic language. And I think a lot of it comes down to the careful organization of how these ideas and the details are presented. But something as simple as the arc of a love affair, rainbows in the high desert air. The arc of a love affair. You start to really get an idea of what the past has been, as well as what it is now. And then, in order to avoid being too grand and epic, we finish by saying, rainbows in the high desert air. Mountain passes slipping into stone. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones. What an expression. What a way of setting us up. Really painting this broad story. But more than just the broad strokes of it, we have details, fine, intricate details, just like the musical accompaniment is also intricately layered and detailed.
Thinking back to the season before, looking back through the cracks in the door. Two people were married, the act was outrageous, the bride was contagious, she burned like a bride.
She burned like a bride.
These events may have had some effect on the man with the girl by
I
his
love
side.
the way the rhythm kind of
The arc
sets
of
that
love
aside.
affair.
It places it as a kind of an inset in the story.
Love like lightning shaking till it moans. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones. And whoa, 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 she said, why don't we drive through the night?
Interesting.
We'll wake up down in Mexico. Oh, why? I
This is
don't know
interesting.
nothing about no Mexico. And tell me why won't you love me for who I am, where I am? He said, 'cause that's not the way the world is, baby. This is how I love you, baby. This is how I love you, baby. This is how I love you, baby.
I mean, I need to press pause, but I'm so reluctant to press pause. This is more than just a lyrical journey. The music itself is traveling as well. It's like different parts of this song are different places in the journey. The texture changes, the instrumentation changes or modifies itself, and the rhythmic setup changes as well. That's not anything shocking, really. But the way it's organized, it feels like such a following of a story of travels and journey through time. And when the music changes, it makes us experience the lyrics differently. I said at one point, I guess it was, these events may have had some effect. At that point, it changed, and I was thinking, okay, this is kind of a musical form of an inset in a page of text. There's an inset box there, kind of giving us a different perspective on things, or more detailed look at something. But actually, as the song progressed, I realized, oh, that's not an inset. This is actually, we're traveling. We're finding ourselves in different places musically, time-wise, rhythm-wise, texture-wise, landscape-wise. The music is the portrayal of the varied landscapes that are being traversed, as well as the different periods of time, different experiences, we could say the landscapes of experience in this couple's relationship as well.
Here I am. He said, 'cause that's not the way the world is, baby. This is how I love you, baby. This is how I love you, baby.
So slow. Okay, now this comes back to the sort of traveling, wandering texture.
One and one half wandering Jews return to their natural coasts to resume old acquaintances and step out occasionally and speculate who had been damaged the most.
Classic Simon, Paul Simon bassline there.
Will be their reward. The arc of a love affair waiting to be restored. You take two bodies and you twirl them in.
And the story that's developing too. What an interesting story, way of telling a story and perspective. It's kind of the choice of getting married, where the two aren't considered acceptable because of their backgrounds. One and one half wandering Jews. I mean, suddenly we start to understand why that's so important, why it was the first line in the story. One and one half. Now we understand. Oh, it's because, well, their families or their associations, the society, didn't accept that they should be married, that their backgrounds were not agreeable. And yet they went ahead and did it because, of course, they loved each other. And it was this journey that they've taken. It was kind of a way of getting away from all the criticism and the ostracizing that happened because they got married. And all of the experiences they had. And then it brings us back to returned to their natural coasts. So we're not going down to Mexico to escape and live there forever. We return to our natural coasts to resume old acquaintances and step out occasionally and speculate who had been damaged the most. How has all this stress and pressure affected the couple and affected those who knew them? And now, as they're trying to fit their way back into society and find a way of being accepted after the storm has passed. Easy time will determine if these consolations will be their reward. The arc of a love affair waiting to be restored. It takes its toll. But still, it feels to me as though they are still together.
Waiting to be restored. You take two bodies and you twirl them into one. Their hearts and their
Twirl them into one. What a nice expression.
one, they won't come undone. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones. Hearts and bones.
Multi-layered texture here. It's still a journey. We're still traveling. In other words, the journey of these two is not ended. And then it ends so suddenly. Well, I guess I kind of like that. It's nice to not always end with a fade out. I guess I've gotten used to hearing a lot of rock music ending with a fade out. And so it's a bit refreshing to hear something which is meant to convey a continuing journey, not being presented in the normal way of fading it out so we never hear the journey's end. Instead, we just come to the end of the book, close the cover, da-da-da. Story continues, but that's the end of the book. And this song does read like a book. It feels like a book. I found myself relating to it as a story I might find in a book, not a story I might see in a movie or something like that, but really a story as I might read it in a book. And so I really enjoyed that ending where it feels almost like end of the book, slap the cover closed, da-da-da-da, that's it. Really nice. I love the expression, the poetry. It's, as I said, I recognize so much of it from my bit of exposure to Simon and Garfunkel. And it's nice to start to hear more of Simon's work on his own and start to recognize, then looking back to Simon and Garfunkel and recognize, feel more naturally the role each of them contributed in their work together. So that's also a kind of a nice educational moment for me here as I'm listening to this. But it also makes me eager to be exploring more of Simon's solo career work as well, because there are still so many of these elements that have attracted me to Simon and Garfunkel's work together. I'm sure I'll be hearing more Paul Simon in the future. I'm sure I will. But this itself, it's not just that it's a story. I like the way he handles the story. I like the perspective he brings. I like the message he conveys. And it's a kind of commentary on an observation, even criticism of the way in which society's expectations and prejudices and the limits it places on individuals by way of tradition and prejudice can be so hurtful, so damaging to an experience and a journey which really ought to be free to be enjoyed. And instead, there's this constant stress and a toll that is exacted simply because of society's rules and prejudices, rules built on prejudices and customs and practice. I feel like that is the overall message of this piece. It's enjoyable as a story and the music is nice, but there is a serious side and a critical side as well, saying this is not what social standards should do to people. This is not something admirable, something to be cultivated or perpetuated. These are things that are wrong, and we should each of us in our own self take a moment to step back from what we've always grown up with in our beliefs of what's acceptable and look and see, does that really make sense? Is it really right to have that as my way of relating to this situation? Because perhaps it's simply something that is entirely out of place and becomes hurtful, harmful, rather than helpful. Society doesn't have to disintegrate into chaos. We simply have to choose what really are the standards that are the values, the expectations, the rules that are good and helpful and uplifting, rather than, well, it's always been the way things are, so we're just going to ostracize those people and, cut them out of our lives or make their start of life together incredibly difficult simply because it doesn't, for whatever unnamed reason, doesn't feel okay to us. So another example of how Paul Simon is able to take really serious subject matter and turn it into something incredibly, not just palatable, but deeply enjoyable and satisfying to consume, which then allows us to take time and live with these thoughts and these observations and gradually shape us into more tolerant, more caring human beings. What a nice piece of music for all these reasons. And I'm looking forward to when I hear his music again. I'll see you soon.